If it gets noisy, I will mute you, but at the moment it sounds pretty good. Let's just bring the chat up. Okay, so this is just to give you an update on what's coming down the track with WordPress 5.5, which is going to be a fairly major release with some really cool stuff coming in it. So I just want to talk you through some of the things that are coming your way so you can prepare for it, really. Right, so this is what I want to talk you through. So briefly, the release timescales for 5.5, just let you know when it's all going to happen. Then for those of you that want to sort of see it before it arrives, you can actually test the beta. There's a beta available today, and you can go and download it and test it on, I wouldn't test it on your real sites, but if you have development sites, if that's your inclination, you can go and test it. I've got it running on a site I'm going to show you some of the demos on today, so you can actually go and test it. Some of the big changes in 5.5 really relate to the block editor, to the Gutenberg block editor. So it's going to be a big change, actually, mostly for the better. So I just want to show you, I'll show you what those new things are coming to Gutenberg are going to be, to the block editor. In my view, this is probably going to push Gutenberg even more mainstream. So some of the early reaction to some of the key influencers around YouTube that I've been looking at, and certainly some of the forums, the reaction has been really, really positive. So my view is this is probably going to push Gutenberg more mainstream than it has been, and which is a good thing in my view. There's some specific things around Gutenberg in terms of the user interface that they're changing, and some things that are going to make your life easier when you're using the block editor, which I'll show you, which are coming in 5.5. And there's also some specific things around images and how you can now, you will be able to edit images to a certain extent in Gutenberg, and I'll show you what those are. So that's really, all that stuff is really concerned with the editing experience. There are some other things that are happening in 5.5, which is just worth knowing about. These won't impact your life so much in terms of your day-to-day experience with WordPress, but they will probably make your life a bit easier. So specifically, there's automatic plugin and theme updates are going to be available for you, and I'll show you how that works. That has pros and cons, but I'll talk you through what those are. And there's a few SEO improvements coming down the track as well. And then we'll have some time for Q&As at the end, or if you have any questions throughout, just shout at me as well. Cool, does that sound all right, everyone? Can everyone see my slides and you can hear me, yeah? Great, right. So let's start with release timescales. So this is where we're at the moment. A second beta has just been released, I think today or yesterday. But the slated release date is the 11th of August. That's the important date really for the diary. That's not to say that you have to on that day upgrade to WordPress version 5.5. It will really be, depending on your hosting, you'll be able to control when you update to 5.5, but it'll be available around the 11th of August. Sometimes these slip a little bit, but at the moment, that's the kind of target date. So we're not talking that far away, really. As I said, the beta is available today if you want to go off and play on it. I recommend you do. If you do have development sites hanging around that you can go and install it on, it's definitely worth doing because you'll experience it. So the easiest way to start playing with the beta is there is actually a plugin that you can use called WordPress Beta Tester. So only, just to stress this again, don't do this on your real published sites. Only do this if you've got development websites that you've got hanging around that you're not worried if things break on, because they're still finding and fixing bugs. But this is the plugin. It's called WordPress Beta Tester. You just go and install the plugin. So if you just Google WordPress Beta Tester plugin, you'll find the download to it, or through your dashboard, you'll find the download to it. And then what happens is, I've got it on this site actually, so let me just show you the setting you need to go to. You just go to settings, sorry, to tools, and then to beta testing. So you go tools and beta testing. Once the plugin's installed, let me just show you the plugin here so you can see it. It is this one here, WordPress Beta Tester. And then once you've activated it, you go to settings, sorry, tools and beta testing. and you'll see here some options. Well, that's new actually. So now you can go beta. So either that one, bleeding edge nightlies, or beta release candidates will get you the beta. You just set that, save changes, and then in updates, you'll have an update available here to update to the beta version. Okay. So if you want to, you can go and start playing with it. If you want to, however, so that's one way. If you want to experience the latest version or what's coming in WordPress 5.5 in terms of the block editor, then an easier way to do that is actually just to go and install the Gutenberg plugin, because this current version, this one here, is actually the one that's going to be, actually it might be 8.5, but I think it's this one or the one before it is the one that's actually going to be in WordPress 5.5. There's some other things that are coming in 5.5 over and above what's in the Gutenberg block editor plugin. But if you just want to see the new editing experience, then you can just go forth and install the Gutenberg plugin, and that will give you the version of the block editor that you're going to get in WordPress version 5.5, because the Gutenberg plugin is the block editor, but it's always slightly ahead of what you get in the full version of WordPress. So if you want to see what's really going on or what's coming down the track with the Gutenberg block editor, you can install that plugin, and it gives you kind of the version you're going to get in the core in a few months' time. So that's how you can start testing it. Right, let's dive into some of the changes that are coming in Gutenberg. So I'm just going to talk you through this with a little demo so you can actually see what's going to happen, what's coming down the track. So I'm just going to start by building a new page. And this site that I'm using is using the WordPress beta. So it's the latest version of the block editor, the one that's coming in 5.5. And if you're familiar with the block editor, you'll see that the interface is different in terms of, we've got things like this little, we've just got different styling. So this little add block sign is different. So let me just type in a title here and put in some text. Okay, so just to repeat myself, I said this in the last webinar, but one of the things that throws people at this point is that when you're editing or creating your pages, you lose by default all your normal WordPress menus down the left here, which is a bit confusing for some people. If you want to bring those back, then you just click on these three dots and click on this option here, full screen mode. That'll get all your normal WordPress menu items back. I've kind of grown accustomed to not using it now, just because it gives you more kind of screen real estate to work in. But if you do want to get it back, it's just these three dots and just unselect full screen mode there, and they come back. Okay, so I'm going to, just for this demo, I'm going to work without it, just so it's a bit clearer what we're doing. Okay, so one of the big differences is when you're actually inserting new blocks. So I've just got a list of things I want to talk you through. So I've just added 2 paragraph blocks here, and you'll see over on the right here, I've still got this plus button, but the styling's slightly different. But when I click on it, this block library is now quite different. Whereas before you could scroll through all the blocks here, now it only presents you with 6 blocks, which when I first encountered this was kind of frustrating, because I'm used to just being able to scroll up and down them. You can still search for a block in here. So you can still do that, but it's not going to show you the full block library. And the reason for that is they kind of want you to click on Browse All, because when you click on Browse All here, it's going to open up your block library in a persistent panel over on the left, which will stay there. So you can actually scroll up and down all your blocks. So it's going to make block discovery easier for new users to the block library. So these are all the blocks, and you can still search for them and things like that. So if I want to add a cover block, I can still do that, and it's going to pop down here, and I can choose a photo like so and write over it. The same sort of thing. Okay. But this persistent block panel over here, I think, is going to help people discover blocks more easily. And it's kind of similar if anyone uses Elementor, which is another page builder. It's kind of got the same philosophy as that it's showing all the blocks available down here. Okay. Right, a couple of other things. This took me a while to work out, but if you want to get rid of this block panel over on the left here, then you just click on the plus sign again. Okay, so just by clicking on that plus sign, it does 2 actions. It shows the block panel, and it also removes it. So it's not the most intuitive thing in the world, but once you realize it's there, it is. You can just play with it. Okay, so it's up to you whether you show it or not. I kind of do a bit of both, to be honest. And you can still search for all that stuff. So that hasn't really changed. Also, what hasn't changed is that you can still search for blocks in line. So rather than clicking, once you become like more familiar with the blocks that are in your tool set, you don't actually have to click on this plus sign at all. You can just hit / and then it's going to list the blocks here as well. And then you can just start typing the name of the block that you want to add, and it will find it for you. So that's an even quicker way to work. That's once you're familiar with the blocks that are in your block library. Let me just repeat that for you. You just hit / and that's going to bring up all the blocks here. And then you just type the name of the block that you want to add. So if I wanted to add my buttons in here, I could add some buttons. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Another improvement, which might not seem that exciting, but it's very useful, is it's much easier now to see the hierarchy of the blocks. So one of the things that's slightly confusing within the block editor is because you're able to nest blocks within other blocks. It's quite hard sometimes to know which block you're actually working on. So let me show you an example of that. I'm just going to add a cover block. Let's choose a background image. I'm going to add some blocks within this. So let's add a buttons block within here. Well, let me just center it. Okay, let's just put a paragraph underneath as well and align it. Okay, so we've got a sort of nice hero call to action thingy going on. And sometimes it's quite hard to know kind of where you're working within that block. So for example, if I want to change the background color of that whole section, I would actually have to select the cover block, the background cover block. And now, can you see down here in the bottom left, we've got this little breadcrumb trail that tells me which element I'm actually working on. Can you all see that? Sorry, it's a bit small down there. So as you go along, when you click between blocks now, it's going to show you down here the natural hierarchy of your block. So if I click on this one, that's going to tell me I'm actually in the paragraph within the cover block. If I click on the cover block above it, it's now telling me I've got the cover block highlighted. So now I can go ahead and change the background color. Okay, so that's really, really useful. The other way that you can do that is, oh, Anthony just said, does anyone else not see the breadcrumbs? Can you see the breadcrumbs? Not see the breadcrumbs?
Yeah, it's the breadcrumbs.
Yeah. So Anthony, they're in the bottom left of the screen. Let me just take a screenshot and show you in this window here. So that's not a great example, but they're in the bottom left, and that's what you see. Sorry, Anthony, it's not very easy to show you, but it might be the picture. Oh, can see them now. Okay, yeah, they're down there. The other way to see that, and this was there before, is these 3 lines up here. That will also show you the hierarchy of your blocks. So it's just these 3 lines here. So that's another way to do it. And you can see there's the top level, the cover block, and within that I've got a paragraph, which is this one here. And then I've also got another paragraph, which is this one here. And then I've got a main buttons block, which is like a container. And that one contains 2 buttons, the book now and the get in touch. So that's the book now one, that's the get in touch one. But the top level is that one. So for example, if I wanted to align these, I'd have to select the top level buttons block. Okay, and this throws a lot of people when they're working in the editor that they're not editing at the right level, but this shows you up here and it lets you select them as well. And so I can do things like align those buttons right, or I can center them. Okay, so that's, for me, these little breadcrumbs are quite a nice improvement. Right, another improvement, which is coming, is the ability to select multiple blocks. So I've got these 4 paragraph blocks here. And now what you can do is you can select them all. So you just hold down Shift and click into them. And then the beauty of that is you can change all the settings in one hit. So let's say I want to change the background color of all of them and the text color and also the alignment. I don't have to go through each one individually. I can multi-select. So that's going to save you a chunk of time as well. Let me just show you that one again. Add some paragraphs. So if I want to select these top two, I can just click into them, hold down Shift, or click into the first one, hold down the up arrow or Shift key, and then select them both. And then these color settings are going to be available for me. So I've just changed the text color on that one. So multi-selecting blocks is going to be kind of cool. Right, another thing that's changed is, let me click on this plus sign, but this layout over here has changed slightly. So now, excitingly, we've got patterns, which I sort of mentioned at the last webinar. And these are going to be very cool. They're not cool yet, but they will be. Patterns are pre-designed layouts of blocks that you can bring into your pages. Now, in this release, they've just kind of invented a few here. So this one, 3 columns of text with 2 buttons. You just click on them and they'll come in here. And then you can still come in here and edit them. Let's add another one so you can see it. But where patterns are going to get really exciting is that plugin authors, I mean, these aren't particularly beautiful at the moment, as you can see. I wouldn't say they're going to win any design awards, but you hopefully get the idea. Yeah, as I say, plugin authors are going to be able to, so when you install a plugin, they'll potentially create some patterns that you can use in those plugins, and also themes will use them. That's where they get really exciting. So themes will, in the future, come with pre-designed patterns. So it will just save you time. They'll create some really beautiful looking patterns, I imagine, some of the popular themes out there. In fact, we're going to do this. But you can just click on them and they'll bring these pre-designed elements into your pages, which will just save you a ton of time. The other thing that's changed in this layout is you've now got your reusable blocks in a bit more of a friendly place, so they're more evident. So if you haven't seen reusable blocks before, they let you create, they let you save a layout like this one here. Let's say I wanted to save this. Let's say I wanted to use this section that I've created here in multiple places throughout my website. It lets me save it to my library and then reuse that within multiple places within my website. So I don't have to recreate it. So you just save it as a reusable block. You add it to your reusable blocks, give it a name. Let's call it Jamie's block. Let's call it Jamie's call to action block. Okay, and save it. And then when you're creating your next page, you don't have to recreate it. It's just going to appear. No, it's already appeared. Look at that. That's very clever. And then you can just click on that and it's going to bring that into down here, which is very cool. Okay, so it's just making reusable blocks. They were there before, but they were kind of hidden on the old modal pop-up that we used to get. So that's kind of cool and exciting as well. And then just one other thing to show you on this page is the cover block has had an improvement. So I'm a big fan of the cover block. So the cover block lets you add a photograph and then write over it, or a block of color like I've used a few times here. You can also put videos behind them as well, which is cool. But let me just choose an image. In fact, let's choose one from my library. Let's go for this one. Okay, so I'll put my heading in. So now with the cover block, you can actually, you've got a bit more control over where the text goes. So you see these little things here. You can now start to move them around. Okay, the actual block itself. So you've got a bit more control. And again, that wasn't there in the old version. You just click on it and you'll see these options up here. So you can sort of have a bit more control. So that's kind of cool as well. So, and then the final thing to show you on this is kind of a thing I'm not sure I'm a fan of, but it's quite profound. And I think they're just, at the moment, they're just playing with the idea. But in the future, potentially what's going to happen is you'll be able to search for a block over here on the left. And even if you don't have that block, it'll go off and search the WordPress block plugin directory, and it'll find you a block that does what you want. So I've kind of got a plugin that this should work with. So there's one called Starscape, which lets you add, let's see if this works. Yeah. So I don't actually have this block on my site installed as a plugin, but it's just trundled off and searched for it. And it's found a plugin that has a block called Starscape, which is really profound when you start thinking about it. So potentially in the future, you'll just search for something in here. Even if you don't have that plugin on your site, it'll trundle off and find you that. And then all you have to do is click on this little add block button here. And it's actually going to go off and install that plugin and add the block in here. Okay. Which is kind of, I'm not sure I'm a big fan of this, because I think people might end up with just hundreds of plugins on their sites, which they don't really realize they're adding to their sites. And you'll see when I go back to the dashboard and go to plugins, it's actually, there's that plugin that it's actually added for me. Okay, I didn't know it was a plugin, I just added a block. So, I mean, it's quite exciting, but it could have implications for people's sites. So, so that's quite cool. Alan has a question: can you move images around the cover block in the same way as text? And the answer is kinda. Let me just show you. So what you can do with the cover block is, let me add this fella. In fact, no, that's not going to work. Let me show you this. No, that's not going to work. Yeah, that might work. It might work. Yeah, so what you can do with this, you've got this focal point picker. That sort of answers your question, Alan. So you can actually, you see, if I want to center the hand, I can center it or move it out of shot.
Jamie, what I'm thinking of is, if you have a cover block and you want to put other images, such as, say, qualification badges or something like that, on that cover, sort of maybe a couple top left, top right, something like that. I've had a little bit of trouble trying to do that and get it precisely placed.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be great for that. The cover block wouldn't be. Yeah, I would, if I was you, I'd have a look at the Caxton layout block.
Okay.
And add a background to it, because you can add grids within that, and then you can have a bit more control over the placement of it.
Shall do, thank you.
Okay, cool. Right, other things to show you that are coming in the new editor. Let me just get rid of this one. So image editing is coming. So you're going to be able to edit your images kinda in place. So let me just add an image here. Choose one from my library. Let's choose this fella. Okay, so you'll see when you add an image to your page, you'll have this new sort of cropping tool here. Okay, which lets you, it lets you do a few things. It lets you crop this photo. Let me show you how this works. So you click on that little sign. Now you can actually zoom in, which I only discovered the other day just by doing the thing.
Yeah.
But you can also
going in a few minutes.
I'm just going to mute you all because we've got some. Oh, it's Carl. That's right, Carl. Yeah, but you can change the proportions here. So you can actually make it square, or you can make it landscape, and then you can move it around. You can rotate them, but I don't see a huge amount of benefit in that. Or you can do portrait. So that's kind of cool. Now, when you actually, let's say I apply this. Let's make it a bit more center. It's actually going to create, it's going to crop the image, and it will create a brand new image. It will maintain your original, but basically what it's doing in the back end, it's creating a brand new image for you. So you've got simple image editing, which I think will save, again, for people that aren't au fait with image editing tools. I think that'd be very, very useful. Sorry, chaps. What else? So I think that's probably all the exciting things that are coming to the new editor, but they're pretty cool. Stephen had a question: are reusable blocks global? If you amend info in a reusable block, will it change that info everywhere else you have? Yes, it will, which is a good thing. But you can also, turn a reusable block into a not reusable block. So let's add this one. Let's say I wanted to edit, I could convert it to a regular block, and then I could come in here and just change certain aspects on that particular one. And that wouldn't edit everything else.
That's very powerful, actually, isn't it? I suppose it's a bit like the patterns thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, in fact, somebody mentioned that the other day. And wouldn't it be great to be able to save these as, I mean, they are like patterns. They're kind of, they're blocks. They're only at the block level, I suppose, is the difference. Whereas patterns can be multiple blocks.
Yeah, okay. But a reusable block can consist of other blocks, though, can't it?
It can, but they're generally nested within it.
Yes, absolutely, dead right.
Yeah, your point is well made too. Cool. Yes. Right. A few other things to show you, which are coming. These aren't to do with the editor. So one of the nice things that's coming potentially, and again, this has pros and cons, and a lot of people have asked me over the years this very thing, is you are now going to be able to set your plugins to auto update. Okay, so this, you see, again, this, just to repeat myself, this site is using the latest beta. So this has this functionality. And when you go to plugins, as I've got here, can you see we've got this new option here that says enable auto updates. And that will, as soon as there's an update available for that particular plugin, it will update it for you automatically. Now, I would be very personally cautious about this. So it depends on your risk assessment for your site, whether you actually click enable auto update and whether you're building sites for customers and that kind of thing. But it's kind of cool that you're going to be able to auto update plugins. I mean, if they're very trusted plugins and you've been using them for years, it's a nice thing. If you've got some plugins that you just started using, then I wouldn't do it. But it's kind of cool that it's coming. Right, and the final two things to talk about are really, you're not going to see them very much, but they're going to have improvements for your sites. The first one is really almost impossible to demo, and that's lazy loading of images. And what that means is when you've got lots of images on a page like this one here, what will normally happen is WordPress will just load all the images and it will wait until all those images are loaded. Lazy loading basically means they'll only load as somebody scrolls down the page, and then they'll load, which means you'll get faster websites. That's the idea behind them. Now, some plugins have historically done this for you. What this should mean is that you won't need so many plugins on your sites to do this sort of stuff. Okay. So that's just something that you don't have to do anything about it. Your theme will just update, and it will just happen for you. And then the only other thing to talk about, I think, is probably, again, it's a bit of an esoteric one, is that WordPress is going to natively generate SEO XML sitemaps. And an SEO sitemap is a file that sits on your website that nobody sees apart from the search engine. And it basically tells that search engine the structure. And it's the idea behind it is it makes it easier for search engines to understand the structure of your website, so it should improve your ranking. I got asked a question previously to this webinar about what would happen if you already had a plugin that did the same thing. Well, those plugins, as far as I can see, are updating themselves. So they'll probably, like, I know that Yoast, I think it has got updated already. So it'll continue to use the Yoast SEO sitemap. But if your site isn't using an SEO plugin, then this is a good thing, because this will help your ranking without you having to have any plugins at all. Cool. I think that is probably all the highlights that I've got for you. Just to summarize the sort of headline from this, I think my view is that the changes in Gutenberg, from what I'm seeing of the early reactions, are going to have a big impact on its adoption and its popularity. And if you haven't already made the sort of Gutenberg leap, 5.5 might be the time to sort of dip your toe in the water and start to, you know, if you're building a new site, definitely start to think about using it. Brilliant. Have we got some questions? So Paul, we'll do some questions now. Right, Paul has a question. Will it enable the ability to force a ping to the search engines that new content has been added to a site? No, Well, that should happen the same way it does anyway in WordPress pool. So I'm not sure that answers your question properly. Maybe take that one offline. But no, it won't do that. It's more about the structure of the SEO thing in particular is more about the structure of your site. Phil has a private question. Yes, Phil. So the question is, have I covered block editing in a previous webinar? Yes, I have, and it's on. They're currently on my blog. If you go on my blog, I've got 3 posts on the 3 previous webinars. Definitely go and check those out. So next question, does that SEO feature negate the requirement for a separate SEO plugin? No, it doesn't really. You still need that for, I mean, one of the most important things for an SEO plugin, as far as I'm concerned, is the ability to write your meta descriptions, which again, we cover in a previous webinar. And this doesn't do that. All this does is it's kind of a small part of it, really. So you still need an SEO plugin if you're serious about getting ranking, in my view. Catherine, how will the update impact WooCommerce? They're already planning for it, so it shouldn't really affect WooCommerce at all. We're testing all our plugins against it already. In fact, we released a new version of our Woo Builder Blocks plugin yesterday, which already works with it. So people are preparing for it and have been for a while, so there shouldn't be any impact. Susan, how will this change our sites which are up and running already? Will it change the content already published? No. So this will only the block editor came in version 5, which was over a year and a half ago. So if your site's up and running already, this will have no impact on it. Lazy load, is it part of Gutenberg or part of WordPress? That's a good question. I think it's Gutenberg and WordPress. So I'm not sure if you're using the classic editor, you'll get this. I think it's part of Gutenberg, but I wouldn't be 100% sure on that. Kevin, good question. Have you heard when the ability to edit the header in Gutenberg will happen? Well, one of brackets final freedom from page builders. It's coming. So you'll see, actually, if you want to have a play with this, if you install the plugin, Kevin, and go to Gutenberg Experiments, you will see this option here, which is a full site editing demo that allows you to start playing. Now, it's not particularly a smooth experience at the moment because the theme sort of has to support this. But there isn't. The key bit is there is a navigation block in Gutenberg, which is part of what you're going to need when you're doing full site editing, which is called navigation. Here we go, horizontal. So they're already building this stuff, so you can actually build your menus like this. Okay, so this is already here, and the idea behind full site editing, for those that missed my previous webinar, is that at the moment when we're talking about the block editor, we're just talking about this section here, the post area or the page area. Okay, just the sort of post or page. In the future, where this is really going is you're going to be able to edit your whole site with it, your header, your navigation, plus your pages, and plus your posts, plus your footer. Okay, so the block editor is going to become ubiquitous throughout your whole site. So when somebody goes to a WordPress website, the whole experience really will be using the block editor. That's sort of, I mean, you'll see the functionality is already there. It's just not, we're waiting for a bit more functionality and some themes to really support it. Alan, do these updates enable us to create more efficient sites by deleting plugins such as Yoast that other plugins deliver functionality for? You'll still need an SEO plugin, so that doesn't really help with that. It might help you with some lazy loading plugins, but Gutenberg is definitely going to help you remove plugins that you probably use on your sites, because it now does so much. The other thing that I haven't mentioned about Gutenberg is the speed. The work that's been done on the speed has been phenomenal. So that I don't have the numbers here, but they've put a huge amount of work into making it as fast as possible, both in terms of when you edit with it, but also how quick your website is. which is going to be one of the huge drivers why people start using Gutenberg, because their sites are going to be so much quicker. Right, Martin, they've got lots of questions, Charles. Great questions. Martin, any advice for people with a site that straddles between old widgets and Gutenberg? Well, I would start, and this goes for the next question as well, which is about if you're using a page builder like our page builder. I would start experimenting with new pages because you can mix and match. So you can have some pages with a page builder and you can have some pages with Gutenberg. So it allows you to choose which pages you use for both. But it still isn't quite at the point where you're going to be able to do potentially what you could do in an old page builder that has 5 years development behind it. But we're getting there. So, you know, my advice is start to build some of your pages with it and get used to it, because it's definitely a thing that's coming our way. Right. Could you recommend, so Sue's question is, could you recommend a theme that works particularly well with Gutenberg? Yes, there's more and more coming, but Astra works really well with it. We've just done an update to our 18 tags theme, which is, these are all free as well, by the way. 18 tags works really well with it. There's one called Blocksy, which I've been playing with a lot lately. There's a theme by Cadence, which works really well with it. That's probably enough to get you going. Those are all free, and they're all Gutenberg friendly.
But Storefront is the WordPress one, isn't it?
Yeah, I would use Storefront is very friendly for an e-commerce site. That would be my go-to theme for an e-commerce site. It's completely Gutenberg compatible, and it works with things like WooCommerce blocks and Storefront blocks and our WooBuilder plugin. So yeah, if you're looking for an e-commerce site, Storefront would be my recommendation. Okay, Roger. So Roger's question, I have one quite large site built on WooCanvas, which I shied away from a theme change on grounds of too much work and fraught with problems, but I guess these updates are likely to kill outdated themes. Yes. So you want to, Canvas is no longer supported, so you definitely want to move away from Canvas, Roger, because, and we had a customer last week actually that stopped using it because their site wasn't working anymore. So yeah, you want to move away from Canvas. Errol, are you still supporting 18 Tags Pro Premium going forward? Yes, in fact, we just released a new version a few weeks ago. So 18 Tags, for those that don't know, is our theme. We built a theme, and 18 Tags Pro is a plugin that lets you customize it more. So yeah, we're absolutely supporting it. And one of the things we're looking at actively is block patterns. So we can build these nice patterns that you can just bring into that very easily. And then Claire has a question, when features that you use a plugin for become a native part of WP? It's a great question. Do you have a recommended way of going through and finding out what you could change and therefore delete a plugin? Maybe, brackets. It's a brilliant idea, Claire. No. But no, if you crack that, if somebody could crack that, that'd be amazing. The problem is there's so many plugins and they do so many things, and people can use them in so many ways. It's almost impossible, I'm afraid. So it's just an audit per site and going through them one by one. But it's a fantastic question. So thank you very much. I think that's it. Any other questions? Have I missed anyone's questions out? That sounds like a no. Is that all right, everyone?
Perfect.
Is that all right?
Thank
Great
you very
stuff.
much.
So
Yeah.
I've recorded that. I will send you a link to the recording tomorrow morning. And then I've got a few more of these planned. So I shall hopefully see you over the summer months if you're not going away on holiday.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jamie.
Perfect. Thanks,
Enjoy,
Jamie.
enjoy Malaga.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.